Welcome to the Derek Loudermilk Show. This is episode 320 with David Wood. How to be unstoppable. All right, David Wood is back again for his fifth appearance on the show. And this is a conversation between us. We both have podcasts. This episode is going to appear on both of our shows. And we decided to do it as sort of a conversation, interviewing each other, talking about the topic of how to be unstoppable in life. But before I tell you a little bit about what's coming in this episode, there's a funny David Wood story that I thought of just yesterday. So I wanted to share that with you. And I was staying with David at his house a couple years ago, and he had this wind chime with really long tubes. So it was a very deep tone, like a boom type of tone, but it was kind of out of the way. And he lives up in the mountains. And I kept thinking it was someone and one of his neighbors that lived across the valley was playing some instrument. And it was just weirding me out. And I began to think that it was a figment of my imagination. And David knew the whole time exactly what it was, but I kept looking out there whenever it would chime and just got this weird look on my face. Eventually he pointed it out to me. Eventually he showed me the wind chime, but not before a few days of me thinking I was just totally crazy and trying to figure out if the noises were all in my head or what was going on. So in this conversation, in this episode, David's got this great theory that he's working with, this framework of thinking. The 6 C's of being unstoppable is what we're going to be talking about. And we sort of go back and forth, our own experience of being unstoppable and how we work with clients around this, around goal setting, what gets in the way, self-experimentation, the connection between your bigger goals and your daily, your minutia actions. What is it going to take for your goals to happen? What's your relationship with failure? Are you willing to fail? And we talk a little bit about, David shares how he hired multiple coaches at once for all different areas of his life. Even though he's an expert coach, he went out and got all of these coaches. So I think you're going to really love this personal interview, this personal conversation between myself and David Wood. So here we go.
Welcome to an episode of Extraordinary Focus and
the Derek Loudermilk Show.
That's right. Derek hit me up with an idea. He's like, why don't we, instead of one of us interviewing the other, which we've done before, he said, why don't we have a discussion and go into being unstoppable, what it means for entrepreneurs, leaders, humans, and we'll use it on both our shows. Did I get that right, Derek?
Yeah, and it's really cool because we always have interesting conversations. Sometimes we're hanging out in person, or we.
Oh, sorry, dude. Can we do that again? Because I was sharing my screen during that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and okay. I think we'll do side by side. I'll do speak of you. All right, so go again with that clap. I like that clap.
Okay, yeah, this is.
And action. Welcome to an episode of Extraordinary Focus with David Wood and
the Derek Loudermilk Show.
That's right. So Derek had a radical idea. He said to me, instead of me interviewing you or you interviewing me, which we've done before quite successfully, he said, let's discuss how to be unstoppable. Let's riff on it so that entrepreneurs, leaders, parents, partners, and humans can get a real takeaway that they can be unstoppable in life and business.
And when you and I get together, we're always just sort of batting around interesting ideas. I'm learning a lot from you. This is your 5th appearance on the show, still holding the record. So
yes.
Gosh, so this is really interesting. You were the guest back in episode 49 and 50, or 48 and 49. And your concept in that episode was, here's how to start a coaching business. Here's how to turn what you know into sort of a book. And I've taken the concepts from that episode, and now I have a coaching business. Now I have a book based on what I've learned in the podcast. I've really taken many of the things that you were talking about in that episode, and now they're a reality. So I think it's really cool to reflect on. I didn't even know at the time that was going to happen, but
wow.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. And what I want people to know about you I think you're one of the smartest people I know. We until the tests are in, we won't actually know, but that's my suspicion. And Derek was standing with me, and this totally fits in with being unstoppable. Standing with me on the balcony of my villa in Bali, and I was complaining. I said, "Dude," and we were about to record your podcast episode, right?
Yep.
And and it might have been the first podcast interview I did, and I've now done 140. So Derek was my first, and was standing on the balcony, and I'm complaining. I said, "Look at that pool down below. Every morning I get out here and I want to be able to just get straight in that pool. I want to teleport, and I can't. In fact, I climbed over the railing, climbed over the tiles, and I broke a tile on the roof. And I did manage to jump in the pool, but it was just awkward." And you paused for about a second and then went, "You need a slide."
Well, so most people would just stop there. You'd be like, "Oh, that would be so cool if that was true," and that would be the end of the conversation. But then you were like, "Well, how do I manufacture a slide?" And I remember, you posting the picture of like you with the local engineers like measuring and trying to retrofit a slide under the side of a roof.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It wasn't anything I'd seen before. And you mentioned it. I'm like, a slide would be so amazing. I could like just straight out. So I went to a place that does fabrication of fiberglass, and I told them what I wanted. And they did slides for pools. They just didn't do it on roofs, right? And the cost was prohibitive, but I kept on looking and like, what could we do? And he's like, "Wait a minute." And I think this was in Indonesian we're talking. So it was a little bit stilted. And we go into the back room and he found a mold that looked like it might just fit. And he said, "If this works, we could use this mold and it'd be quite inexpensive." So I think it cost me about $1,000 in the end, or maybe six to 800, including installation. That was the tricky bit. You didn't want the roof to collapse. So we did it. And you know what? It was a little bit dodgy, I got to say too, Derek, because
you shot off to the end of that slide pretty quick.
You shot off, and there were two problems. One, the pool wasn't that deep. It was probably about 5 to 6 feet deep, but when you're coming from a great height, that's not that deep. So I would go in and you'd kind of hit the bottom a little bit. And then the other problem was if you really shot out, you could go within a foot of the far wall of the pool. And it was a little bit dodgy, but it wasn't
things you would never get away with in a country like the United States. All that regulation would.
You always wouldn't do it,
but
but no one sues anyone in Bali, as far as I know. Anyway, that was one exercise in being unstoppable. I'm curious for you. What are a couple of things in your life where you did not say no and you did not get stopped and you kept on going and you're glad that you did?
Well, the first thing that's coming to mind actually is this year I sort of accidentally became the state champion of cycling, and we didn't really race much.
Accidentally?
Accidentally, because
did you trip over somebody?
Well, I didn't win the race because there was people that were in a different state that came in to race and they finished ahead of me. And then there's a guy in a different age group so I was actually like 5th or 6th in the race, but I won the gold medal in the state jersey. So it was sort of like, that's why I call it accidentally. But the reason why I won, and I actually didn't believe that I would win, was because normally the state championships are held on a really hilly course, and I'm a heavier rider. So I don't usually have a good chance, but they moved the course because of the pandemic to a flat, windy course, which suits me. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's mine. I'm going to win. That's mine. And what I've noticed is that whenever I have that level of conviction, whenever I feel like it's already mine, like this house that I bought a year ago, when I was staying at your place last year, we were just putting our offer in on the house. I remember, And I was like, that's my house. I'm going to get it. You know, it's already done. And whenever I've had that experience of just knowing that the thing that I want is already in the bag, it comes true. And there's this force of will, because you know, even then, right, I still had to do the training. I still had to go to the race. I still had to prepare properly and fuel and like not get dropped and, you know, race hard and all that stuff. But it, and even, you know, and the photo finish, it wasn't worrying me, because I was like, that's mine. That jersey is mine. And so there's something to that. And I think a lot of people want something. They say, oh, I want to earn 6 figures or 7 figures, or I want a Lamborghini or something. And there's some doubt in their mind. They're like 90% behind what they're going for. But when you have 100% conviction, it's so much easier to just be who you need to be and get the thing that you want.
Right. So I like that you've gone there, because mindset, I think, is critical. And it's been said your life is as good as your mindset. And so what I'm hearing for you is that you were assuming it was already a done deal. For you, it was, that's mine. That's my jersey. And a friend of mine, John Webster, was really excited about the concept of something being inevitable. He said he would just view it as, this is inevitable. It will happen. I don't know exactly the time frame, but it will happen. And then his energy was able to open and relax with that. So I like that you went there. And hearing that had me think about a client of mine. His name's Sam, and an amazing entrepreneur. He buys businesses and builds them up. That's what he does. And what was exciting for him was he was already doing well, but he would get stopped, as most people do. The reason I think we get stopped is because everyone else is getting stopped. So it's just what you do. But when he got the concept of, like, the question that I asked him was, well, what would it take? I'm not pushing you. I'm just asking you, what would it take to actually move through and get that done? And his brain just went on, you know, fired up. And actually that is exciting to me, because the brain does fire up. When you ask, what would it take, instead of stopping, then the brain fires up and comes up with all sorts of ideas. And now he says to me, I eat problems for breakfast. I got a lot of problems. What I'm doing is hard, but now I don't care. Now I like it. It was a mindset shift to say, all right, this looks undoable. What's it going to take for us to do it? And we keep going until we find something. And maybe not always, right? Maybe sometimes we're like, hey, this is going to be too much effort. I am not going to put in what it's going to take. Fair enough. Let's not just stop at the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times something gets hard.
Well, so what I see that you did there is you aimed his attention in a different direction, and he was focusing on how hard it was, presumably, and then you pointed his attention to, you know, just how to actually get what you want.
Yeah, and that's one of the most powerful coaching questions I think that was ever created. What would it take? So, for example, he had a vendor who was a real pain in the ass. Just would make commitments and then not follow through on them. And he's constantly chasing. And I said, well, what would it look like in your ideal world? Like what could they do that would have them be a wonderful partner? That was the first question. Let's create it. And so he wrote it down. And his mind's still saying, yeah, but they're not going to do it. I said, well, we're not there yet. Let's just create what would it look like. Then once he had that, like, what do you think it would take for them to step into that space? He's like, wow. And then we did a role play, and he went and he had a conversation with them. He ended up, I think they did better. And then he fired them. And then he got someone who was totally up for communicating with him in the way he wanted. I'm guessing you know what it's like, Derek, when you're chasing someone for something. You know, they said that they'll do it by Thursday, and then Friday comes and Saturday comes, and
hey, neither side likes it. You know, it's like they know they're not living up to it, and it's like there's the resistance that comes from like, well, I'm just going to dig my heels in even more sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It sucks for everybody. So I think we just went into a nice little tangent about being unstoppable around communication. I've got a really basic example. I've got a virtual assistant, or I did until 2 days ago when I did need to let it go. But I would ask a question like, hey, where did you get this from? You know, she wrote an email saying I'd been on Seth Godin's show. And I said, I'm really curious, where did you get that from? And she started to give me an explanation of something related. She's like, oh, well, I can see that this is a problem and we need to fix this and whatever. So if you could tell me how to do it right, I'll do it. And I'm like, thank you. And would you answer my question? And she said, oh, I see that I've made a mistake doing this. I won't make that again. I said, thank you. Do you have the question? Hey, now I see you laughing, right? But I did a 2-day communication course on this shit. And I've never had to say to someone in the 20 years since I did the course, do you have the question? That was part of the exercise. And I realized that's what was missing here. So I said, thank you. Do you have the question? Then she went back, found the question, and answered it. That's an exercise in being unstoppable in communication. And then I said, let's get on a call because I'm really fascinated by this. I seem to be asking for an apple and I get an orange. Let's find out what's going on because I want to work with you long term. And we got on the call and I had to do an exercise from the course. I said, I want you to ask me over and over, do fish swim? That's the question. And then whatever I say, I want you to say thank you and repeat the question if you don't have the answer you want. Now, she wasn't able to follow those instructions, so that was good information. But she did ask the question over and over and over again. She'd say, do fish swim? I'd say, fish are wonderful. She'd go, thank you. Do fish swim? I'd say, birds fly so well. She said, thank you. Do fish swim? I said, it's so great to see you. She's like, thank you.
If I were her, I would be like, what is this? You're employing me to ask you if fish, like, what is going on?
I was paying her for this. But she got it. Finally, I answered the question. And then I said, so what did you get from that exercise? She said, I got that to be you communicating with me must be very frustrating. Yeah. So there's, that's a bit of a tangent, but that's an exercise in being unstoppable. Vic Baronco started an organization called the Morehouse. And he said, I was going to say before he passed, but that's kind of the only time you can say something. He said, it takes one to tango. It takes one person to guarantee communication.
That's when you have good communication techniques or skills when the other person doesn't have to know them, and you can still, because I encounter this all the time. People have sometimes amazing sort of, let's say, emotional vocabulary, and other people, right? You ask them how they're feeling, and they're like, here's my next 12 months plans. We're like, that's not really a feeling, but they're, so there's a whole range of skill and vocabulary, but if you can lead the communication without them having to know anything, that's quality.
Yeah. I like your example. It's so true. I grew up not knowing I had a body, and I know that sounds weird, but I was, and still am, very cerebral. My first inclination will be a thought and probably a solution, okay, a complaint solution. But I've since learned that there's a lot more information available. It's not just the thinking, there's the emotional being. There might be sensation. Like now I have if I check in with myself, I have a sense of anticipation and excitement being here with you, and also a sense of camaraderie. And I don't know if those are emotions, but that's more than just thinking. And then in my body, I feel some tension in my back, like I could use a stretch, and it's like tingling in my hands. So I've become aware that there's a lot more information. So I will ask my clients often, how are you in this moment? If you scan your system for thoughts, emotions, or sensations, what do you notice?
Yeah.
Clearly I'm being very directive, and still often it's just thinking. It's like, well, I've had go straight to the past. I've had a bit of a rough day. This happened, and then this happened, and I've been trying to work how to, right, they go straight into the past and maybe the future. And so I'll try and gently bring them back, and I'll try and be unstoppable gently in, what do you notice right now? If you just close your eyes for a second, if you're willing, what's your body telling you? It's so new for people.
And say, what you're talking about is like living in the past or the future, and it's pulling them away from the present moment, which is really the only time you can do anything. And so these, like, even sometimes if I'm giving a talk and I can see that like I'm losing people, I'll just like okay, bring your awareness to your toes in your shoes or something. Like just like feel yourself inhabiting your body, like in physical 3D space. Like you realize like you're a person in a room in a chair, and and there's this actual inhabiting of space. Actually, quick aside, are you still using a massage chair? Do you have
Yeah, I have a massage chair, and I have this little puppy, which goes over my shoulders.
Oh.
And your hands, if you can't see the video, I've got a massage device now that I'm wearing.
Massage scarf kind of thing.
Massage scarf. And this thing is amazing. It's like $55 and a 2-year warranty. Gets in a little deeper than the chair.
What's that one called?
Oh. Well, the brand is Snailax. Snail and then an AX on the end, which is a really weird brand for a massage chair. But yeah, I love this thing. And I figured I'd break it in the first 10 minutes because it says don't lie on it. The first thing I do is lie on it. But the engineers are really good because it'll just slow down and stop. It won't break. And then it'll keep going when you release the pressure a little bit. So they made it David proof.
Yeah, that's good. I always like, because I'm constantly testing all the little things, from dietary supplements to weird. I think you do this too. You're like running in the snow. Like I'm testing, cold showers in the morning or cold showers in the midday or Wim Hof breathing or who knows what I'm experimenting with. And so it's fun to know like what little devices or tools people are trying out.
Yeah, maybe we'll geek out on that in another episode. I'm so tempted. I'm trying all sorts of different. I've had some health issues for like 15, 20 years. And so I'm always looking for what will increase my energy, which brings us back to being unstoppable. There are times when I'll stop for a while and I'll stop trying something new. But then, recently I hired 4 coaches at once, a dating coach because I'm looking for a partner, an accountability coach, a business coach, and an energy healer. And yeah, I'm running barefoot in the snow in my underwear because the energy healer says do it. And I think it's silly to pay someone money and not do what they say. And I've tried different medications and different herbal things and medicines, ayahuasca and frog poison. And like, I just keep on going because I'm committed to the result. So I'm enjoying this discussion, and I always want to bring it back to the value for listeners and like, let them know where we're heading or where I think we're heading. What do you think is the benefit of learning to be unstoppable for a business owner, which you are? What are some scenarios in which you feel like this would be really practical?
Honestly, I'm still stuck on the four coaches. I mean, that's phenomenal.
It was five.
Maybe we could
It
just
was
five
it
coaches.
was five, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, if we can circle back to your question in a second, but so you're a coach. You've had many coaches in the past, and you talked about like, okay, I'm committed to these things, and I know commitment is one of your like components of being unstoppable. And hiring coaches, we talked about these 6 C's of being unstoppable. But my question is, do you really need all those coaches if you've already had all the coaching? Like, why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, it came from having no coaching for a while. So I'd been going solo, which, I'm pretty independent, and I generally tend to do well alone. But I spoke to a friend of mine who had 4 coaches, and she's doing great. She's like, her business is on fire, her energy's on fire, everything's great. And she spends, I think it was 15 grand a month, might be 12, but it was thousands of dollars a month on coaches. And I'm like, on one coach? She's like, no, I've got coaches for different aspects of my life that I'm committed to improving. And it had me realize, like, yeah, I need to walk my talk. I'm doing really well on my own. What could I do with a coach? So I've been coaching for 20 years, and I'm in my patterns, and I think I know everything. So hubris and arrogance is something to really watch out for. And I thought, all right, let's try some humility and go and learn some new stuff. So I went and signed up for a program, and there are live calls. So I consider the guy who runs that as one of my coaches, even though we're not doing any one-on-ones. And then I was on a podcast with a dating coach, and she needed some branding help. And I'm like, I'm great at branding, and I'm just starting to date now. I think it's time to get on some apps. It's time to let the world know about the extraordinary woman I want to attract into my life. And one of us said, maybe we should do a trade. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. And then someone had suggested energy healing. I don't know much about energy, not consciously anyway. And I thought, that's one thing I haven't really tried. It seems a bit woo-woo to me, but all right, let's do it. Or maybe there's something about my chi or my chakras or whatever that's not working. So I committed to that. I said to my men's group, I will do that. And then there was an accountability program that just popped up. So I was working with a therapist too, who I think is amazing, and I thought could be a really good guide. And he suggested this accountability group. And I didn't really want it for myself because I've done Landmark Education, which is a training program. And I kind of resisted the whole being your word and following through on every single thing you say you're going to do. But I know a lot of my clients have been wanting accountability. And so I thought, let me do this 8-week program. And so I had a coach every week as part of that program. And that got me fired up about this being unstoppable, because as part of the program, you would commit to your 7-day goals, and you could choose. This was what sold me. You could choose which are going to be A goals and which will be B goals. Now, the B goals are like everybody else's goals. You shoot for them. Maybe you do them. Maybe you don't. The A goals, if you don't achieve them by the 7 days, there's a consequence. And with my clients in my program, if you don't achieve your A goals, you pay $5 to someone you really don't like.
I think there's what is it? Stick, STIKK. Is that still going? That web app where you stake the money up front, and then it gets released if you don't do your goals.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to do it. We just simply pay $5 via PayPal, or, I just say to people, who would you not want to pay $5 to? You'd be amazed at the creativity. One guy is paying $5 to his ex-wife if he does not achieve his A goal. I've got another client who, instead of money, because money doesn't motivate her. She has to call someone she doesn't want to have a conversation with and talk to them for at least 10 minutes, right? I've got another client has to pay $5 to Trump's re-election campaign because they're not a Trump supporter. Another client had to pay $5 to a whaling association. And another client paid $5 to a racist organization in Israel. So they hate doing this. So it really gets the attention.
How often did they actually have to pony up versus
very rarely?
Okay.
Very rarely. There are some clients, and I think I'm one of them because I have not missed an A goal yet. See, it's not about the money. It's about being unstoppable. That's the game. And I tell them, if you are in a coma, in hospital, you are still on the hook for finishing this A goal. If you lose a loved one, you break a leg, or it suddenly seems impossible, or it's no longer a goal of yours. It doesn't make sense anymore. You don't want to hire a mechanical engineer. You still complete it because you said, because it's not about the goal anymore. It's about an exercise in how do you speak something and then have it occur in the world. That's the game.
I remember reading or hearing research from Harvard that said, if the only thing you change in business is that your integrity, basically doing what you say you're going to do, your productivity goes up 500%.
Wow. That I could see that. There's so many lessons that are coming out of this A game for myself and my clients. One of them is, a lot of them start with C. One of them is clarity. You get very careful about what you write down because once you've declared it, you can't change it. So if you say, I'm going to create a web page and link Form A to Form B to Form C, and what I discovered is that's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. It has to be Form C to Form A to Form B. It doesn't work. And I said to my coach, do I still have to do this shit the wrong way? Can I just do it the right way? And the answer was exactly what it should have been. No, you do it the wrong way because that's how you said it. And next time, be more careful about what you say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I didn't... Go ahead.
Well, this is bringing up for me, like words, like we were talking about the question you asked to aim your client's attention. I see this with kids all the time when you say like, don't spill the milk. And then they get, like, what do you have to think about not spilling the milk? Well, you have to think about spilling the milk. And this word don't has become sort of my biggest pet peeve because it's like, don't miss hitting that ball. And it's like, well, everybody's going to miss hitting the ball because they're thinking about the thing. And it's just, that becomes such an obvious example of like how your words create the image in your mind, which then makes you do the thing. And so, yeah, being so careful about, I've totally switched. Instead of saying, don't spill the milk, I'll say, you need to use two hands, or you need to set the milk down, or like say the thing you want them to do rather than saying the thing you don't want them to
do. Yeah. The clarity, when you're not playing the A game, if you're just setting normal goals, it doesn't matter if you get the words wrong. Doesn't matter. So you don't have to think about it that much. But once you have something riding on it, and it might be just $5, or it might be just the fact that you're not going to fail on this goal, and so it's important. The clarity becomes important. Also, you got to watch out for time creep, because if you do not, like for me, if I do not put this in my calendar, Wednesday, work on this. Thursday, did you work on it? Sunday, last chance. Tomorrow's the deadline. If I don't put that in my awareness, I could get to the last day and now I've got to do 15 hours straight. Or now it's not possible because I need help from people and they're not available.
Well, yeah. And I think, people, right, they set their year-long goals and then they're like, oh, I got 12 months. And then they're halfway through the year, like, I still got 6 months. And then with 1 week left, they're like, oh, better hustle and hurry. Because They just drug their feet to the last minute.
That's true. Well, this is a pitfall that I'm starting to become aware of in the world is, so here's one mistake: to not have goals, right? Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, that's a mistake, to just not declare, this is what I want. Another mistake is to lose the thread of connection between your daily actions and those goals. It's so easy to do. How many of us have written down goals? Maybe they go on the fridge, maybe they go in the drawer, but we don't look at them again until 5 years later. We might find that piece of paper and go, oh, I did some of that. So this, again, Sam, my client, it was almost an epiphany for him. He's like, I say it in the future and it doesn't feel real. I'm like, in 3 years, I want to be earning $3 million. It's not real. But then as he works backwards, he says, well, what do I need to have in 1 year? All right, I need to have this many brands earning this. Okay, what's it going to take to do that? Can I do it? Yeah, it'll be hard, but I can do it. In 3 months, what am I aiming for? Right? Because that starts to make it more real. 12 weeks is not that far away. And then what I have all my clients do is every single week, set your 7-day goals by looking at your 12-week goals. It's 10 minutes. That's all. 10 minutes a week could change your life. To celebrate what you did, look at your 12-week goals and say, what will I take on for this week? And then which of those will be A goals? So there's a consequence. That's another C, right? And which of them will be a B goal?
How many people actually still set B goals?
Pardon?
How much are people actually setting B goals now that they're got this A goal thing going?
It really varies. And that's another thing that I love about this game. Like I had a couple of weeks where I set only B goals. I'm like, I got a lot going on. I don't want any extra pressure. So I'm not going to do it. Then the next week, there were 3 things that had been kind of pushed off a lot, kept on being pushed back. And I knew that it would make a difference in my business. So I made them A goals. I got to tell you, Derek, for a while, it was a pain in the ass. It really was, because I didn't put it in my calendar. And so my coach checked in with me on Friday and I'm like, damn it, I spaced. This is a lot of work. I hired 3 people on Friday to help me over the weekend to get my slides outlined overnight, to get a registration page done, to get an order page done. And I put in 9 hours on a Sunday.
Wow.
I cranked it out because I was unwilling to fail on these A goals. Now, wasn't that pleasant for me, to be honest, but I felt really good Monday that I had achieved it in time. And I could have put it off another month because it was a big, hairy goal for me. Now, I've had clients say, I want to ramp it up. I want to stretch myself. I'm not stretching myself enough. Okay, great. Put some more A goals in. And then another client was like, that was too much. And it was overwhelming that week. I took on too much. All right. Maybe you dial it back a bit. So you're in control of the dial. And I just want to let you know, that's my alarm to say I have a date in 9 minutes. So I love this conversation, but we're going to have to wrap it up with something profound in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's very exciting. You have a date. And
yes.
Also, I think I've been guilty of this myself. And, when people get to that situation where it's like, oh, 9 hours on a Sunday, like, oh, that's not what I had planned. I don't really want to do it now. Even knowing there was some, maybe financial stake or something you didn't want to do, like, was there an act of willpower there that had you do it? Or like, what actually led you to being able to complete that?
That's a great question. It was the commitment. It's not the $5. It's the knowing in my bones that I am unwilling to fail at the A goal. And so I was walking around the house saying, David, what are you missing? This looks too hard. What's it going to take? And so I hired somebody to do the slides overnight to give me a start on it because I just didn't want to start it. And then I'm like, I need someone to do this order page. I don't have time. right? This is the thing about committing. You declare, create a bigger goal. You have to ask yourself new questions like, what would it take? And even then it took 9 hours. And here's one of the other lessons I got. Draft means draft. Because I said I will draft the slides. And yet here I am trying to make them awesome. That's why it took 9 hours. So I got that lesson out of this exercise. Draft means draft. You could have done the simple version of each slide, not this, like you've seen my model. I showed you before we started this. You didn't have to create that. So many lessons. Once you actually commit and play the A game, you will learn things that I don't even know about yet, because you get to see what breaks down and all your resistance comes up. I had one client, he's like, this sucks. This is a stupid game. I'm not going to hire a mechanical engineer just because I said I would. And I said, well, we'll talk about it on our session. By the time we got to our session, he said, I got it. It's not about the goal. It's about how you play the game.
That's a good part to wrap. That's like a quote. Let's wrap with that one. That's how you play the game. Love it.
Yeah. Derek, this has been really fun for me, man. I love hanging out with you. And I'd love to do this again sometime. We can riff on, hacks that we're trying, or we can riff on clarifying your genius. I like hanging out with you.
Yeah, me too. That was fun. And go have a good date. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. Tell people where they should go to find out more about Derek Loudermilk.
Yes. For me, DerekLoudermilk.com, and I host the Derek Loudermilk Show. And it's, got some really exciting guests on there. So check that out, in addition to David, of course. So thank you. Yeah. And how about you? What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Awesome. For me, I got a little pack of goodies for listeners at myfocusgift.com. There's a cheat sheet on the first steps to double your revenue quickly. There's a little video on how to implement the steps. And you can also get a 15-minute double your revenue audit, all at myfocusgift.com. All right.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.